Hey, welcome back to the Rock Fantasy Files as we once again set the time machine back to 1975. Get ready, guys. Hold on tight because we're going to travel back 50 years. So hit that button, James. We're going, right?
We're
Anyhow,
going.
so the year 75, longtime Purple guitarist Ritchie Blackmore has left the band and formed Blackmore's Rainbow, while Deep Purple is in a whole nother era of Mark IV lineup, and they bring in Tommy Bolin on guitar. The veteran, so this is kind of the veteran David Coverdale at the time versus the upstart, kind of new to most people because other than the ones that were listening to Elf, Ronnie James Dio. So just a little bit about both albums before we kick it off. Of course, Come Taste the Band is the 10th studio album by Deep Purple. It was released on November 7th of 75, co-produced, engineered by the band and longtime associate Martin Birch. Has stronger funk influences than than the previous albums. And of course, Coverdale didn't like the direction they were going in and left. Not David Coverdale, rather Ritchie Blackmore didn't like the direction they were heading in and ended up quitting Deep Purple. So, and then here we go. Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow is a debut album by American British rock band Rainbow. So, released in 75. And of course, he pulls together and gets Ronnie James Dio, who was from Elf, and ended up with Jimmy Bain on bass, Cozy Pyle, and just a great lineup to kick off Rainbow and really put Ronnie James Dio on the map. Uh, the Come Taste the Band actually peaked at 43 on the Billboard 200. So, and it was a change for Deep Purple. So we're just going to go around to each one of the guests tonight and talk about what they like about each album. I'm going to go around once to everybody. Welcome to the show, everyone. We got Ed Farsley from Armageddon Productions, of course, one of our regulars. We got Christian Majorano. I can't never say his name right. He hasn't been on a few weeks, and I've been on at least from Connecticut. We got James Delisle from Disc and Dat Records, and of course the mighty Crucial Pain. We got Count Ralphus in our center square. We've got the legendary Tony Dio from the Southland. We got our Viking who stays up all night in Norway. We got Ovi, and of course our special guest tonight. We've got Peter Pardo from the Sea of Tranquility. And of course, everybody knows Pete. Now we're going to get another 500 viewers because Pete's on. So, anyhow, Pete, would maybe you're not going to stay for the whole show. He's got some other obligations. Maybe I'll let you kick it off.
Okay,
How
cool.
would you like to compare these two records?
Well, I mean, both co-produced, engineered by Martin Birch, right? So there's that tie-in there. Both transitions for one band, certainly, and like a new start for the other band. I gotta say, like, if we would have had this conversation like maybe 20 or 30 years ago, I'd be like, without question, the Rainbow album, right? Just because it's, that first big album with Ronnie on it, and this just some classic songs on there. Back in the day when I was like a young kid getting into Deep Purple, I kind of ignored Come Taste the Band because I was always like, Blackmore's not on it, it's the last album before they break up, blah blah blah. But I gotta say, like, Come Taste the Band is a really, really strong album. And Tommy Bolin, I think, was a really good fit. And you can argue maybe they should have changed the name of the band or whatever, but it's really not all that different than the Stormbringer album because there is that kind of like funk feel to most of the songs. I think that's obviously the Glenn Hughes influence here, but I think Glenn Hughes and Tommy Bolin were two kind of kindred spirits. They work really, really well together. I think the album is terrific. Maybe there's not a lot of the John Lord Hammond organ that we really want, but there's plenty of keyboards on here. But I think that Coverdale sounds amazing. Coming Home is great. Lady Luck, Getting Tighter is a terrific song. Love Dealer, what a guitar lick on that. And then Drifter, Keep On Moving is a great, great track. I
Yeah.
really, really like this album a lot. I think it's aged very, very well. And I think for an album that I think Steve, you mentioned it peaked at number 43, which was kind of a disappointment for the band because their previous bunch of albums had done really, really well. But I think if you look back on it, it's a really great album. And it's just a shame that, the drug problems that Tommy was having and Glenn too at the time kind of
Mm.
just put the kibosh on this lineup after the one tour. Because I think it would have been interesting if, he would have stayed alive and healthy, that maybe they would have continued on. But then, we wouldn't have gotten Whitesnake, right? And just kind of the way things turned out. So I really like it a lot. Now, as far as the other album goes, I think that the Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow album has some drop dead classics on it. I don't think it's nearly as strong as the two albums that would come afterwards. And, this is basically Elf without their guitar player and with Ritchie in the band. I think with Rising, obviously, you would get that amazing lineup with Cozy and Jimmy Bain and Tony Carey and whatnot. But there's some, I mean, it's got Man on a Silver Mountain on it. Self Portrait is great. Catch the Rainbow is a classic Rainbow track. There's Temple of the King. Still, they do the cover Still I'm Sad. They do it on a live album. It's even longer. Snake Charmer is great. I think it's a really strong album. It's not their best, in my opinion, but it's still really good. If I was to compare the two, I almost have to give it to Rainbow for the Dio connection and because of the fact that there's a couple tracks on this album that are just like legendary hard rock tracks and Rainbow tracks. But I think it's a lot closer than I would have had it like years and years ago. I think that Come Taste the Band is really, really strong. But I got to go with Rainbow on this by just a smidge, just because it's got Dio on it. It's got
Mm.
Man on a Silver Mountain on it, right? That means a lot
Sure.
to me. So yeah, but both really, really great albums. And this is not a like slam dunk win for Rainbow, in my opinion, just because I think the Deep Purple album is really, really strong, and it just gets better with age. I like it more as time goes on. But yeah, I got to go with Rainbow on this by just a little bit.
And it's the Deep Purple record in the mainstream is definitely overlooked by a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's
And
a great sounding album too. Really is.
of course Tommy Bolin did, passed away after so young, so tragic.
Yeah, yeah, he's a great guitar player. That I mean, if folks haven't heard him, listen to those two James Gang albums he appeared on. Those are kick ass. Really, really good. He did those fusion albums with Billy, one with Billy Cobham and one with Alphonse Mouzon. There's great guitar playing on there. His two solo albums are great. And that's it, basically. The Zephyr albums really early on. Great, great player that taken away way too early.
Cool, cool. All right. Thanks, Pete. I'm gonna head over since we're talking about Dio. We might as well keep it in the same speed. We're gonna go to see Tony Dio next.
We'll talk about Uncle Ronnie. Yeah. So
He is your
yeah,
uncle. He is your uncle, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I only wish, but yeah, would have been really cool. So yeah, first one I'm going to talk about is "Come Taste the Band." Here's a copy I've got. It's signed by Glenn and Ian Pace.
Nice.
And Richard, our friend Richard, the truck driver, actually sent me this as a gift. So that was very nice of him.
Shit, yeah, Richard.
Um,
Richard's the best. He was great. Great
he
having
is,
Richard
man.
on last week. Yep.
Um, yeah, so this was an album that it's a dark horse album for the band. There's nothing else in the Deep Purple catalog like this at all. It's a very bluesy, funky record, very soulful. It's a lot of stuff on here kind of remind me of what the band, what Coverdale would go on to do in Whitesnake, and of course Ian Pace and John Lord were both in Whitesnake, and yeah, it's much different. Blackmore had left during the Stormbringer, after the Stormbringer tour. He wasn't happy with the music they were making. That they were kind of going in this direction in a way, and he called it shoe shine music. And yeah, so he wasn't happy. So of course he forms Rainbow with the Elf guys because Elf was a touring band that was support band on that tour. So but this is one that I had avoided it for years back in the day when I was getting into hard rock and metal and stuff. And, I get into Deep Purple and stuff. And I mean, I think I ended up getting Burn, and I loved Burn, but I got Stormbringer, and I hear people talking about, oh, Come Taste the Band. A couple older friends had told me, oh, it's a totally different record. It's like real funky and all. You probably won't dig it. It doesn't have Blackmore on it. Well, somewhere down in the early 90s, I really got into Glenn Hughes. It's probably about mid 90s because he released a record called From Now On. And somehow or another, I ended up picking up a copy of that and just loved it. And I started going back and listening to like Seventh Star. And he did an album with John Norum called Face the Truth. And I was just really just into Glenn Hughes. So, and then I picked up the live Glenn Hughes record, Burning Live in Japan, which is this album. If you haven't heard it, check it out. It is an amazing live album from Glenn Hughes. I think it came out in like I think it was around 95 or so. He did a live show in Japan with a killer backing band. He was just singing. He was just a lead singer. Most of the guys in his band were in Europe, the band Europe, that is. But yeah, he did a couple of tracks from Come Taste the Band. He does Getting Tighter, and he does This Time Around into Ode to G. So I was like, all right, I got to check this record out. So I ended up getting hold of a copy of Come Taste the Band and checked it out. I was like, wow, this is a really, really good record. I mean, it's like I said, it's different than anything that Deep Purple had done in the past or anything I was used to hearing by them. And I was like, yeah, it's a lot of stuff on here. It sounds like Whitesnake. I mean, Lady Luck and Drifter for sure are total like proto Whitesnake type songs. But then you've got, I mean, the opening track, Coming Home, just a smoking track. Getting Tighter, that I mentioned, was on the live Glenn Hughes record. I mean, Glenn sounds great on this. Such a groove on that album. It's just a kick-ass, funky track. It's got, I mean, it's definitely what Glenn would kind of move into when he first started doing solo records. I think his first record, Play Me Out, is very, very soulful. But this song, This Time Around, I mentioned it was on the live record, and it goes into an instrumental called Ode to G. Man, Glenn sounds amazing on that. I mean, he's got such a soulful vocal prowess. He's more Stevie Wonder than Stevie Wonder at times. I mean, he just sounds amazing. And yeah, so that song, I love that song. It's great. I love Love Child. I Need Love, Dealer, everything on this record I really like. But You Keep On Moving might be my favorite track. It's probably one of my top 5 Deep Purple tracks.
Wow.
Just a great track. I mean, just Coverdale and Hughes together harmonizing sounds so great. I had actually first heard that when I mentioned that the Glenn Hughes record that he released From Now On. They had a couple of bonus tracks on the Japanese version I had gotten, and they did a remake. He and Coverdale did a remake of You Keep On Moving on that, and that's like the first time I ever heard it, and it's like such a killer track. But I think the Deep Purple track just smokes it, the original version of it. Just that's one when I play it, I just crank the stereo up because I just love it. Such a great track. So moving on to Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. Great record here. I love the gatefold cover in this. It's got the collage of the band, and of course an excellent picture of Ritchie on stage. Actually, this one's still got the hype sticker on it that it was originally on it.
Nice.
I always love to find records with those, and all really cool. But yeah, so I was into Ronnie James Dio, of course, and during the 80s, and I had all the Dio records at the time, you know, up to like Sacred Heart or whatever, and had went out and got the Sabbath stuff. And I hadn't got into Rainbow yet, Dio Rainbow. The only Rainbow stuff I was familiar with was Street of Dreams and Stone Cold, because MTV played those videos quite a bit back then. And, you know, I knew the sound of that. So I really wasn't, you know, prepared to what they're going to sound like with Ronnie James Dio fronting them. And so I ended up, this is the first one I went out and got, Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow. And I don't know if any of you guys ever had it on cassette, but the cassette, the songs, the sides are reversed. Like side B is side A on the cassette. So the first song I ever heard from this tape when I put it in was Snake Charmer, and which I think is a blazing track. It's killer. And but yeah, I mean, Man on the Silver Mountain, just such a classic riff. I mean, it's one of Dio's signature songs of his career. And moving on to Self Portrait, I just love that. It's a dark, mysterious sounding track. I don't know if you guys ever heard Blackmore's Night did a really good cover of that with Candace singing. I thought was really cool. Black Sheep of the Family. That's the whole reason that Rainbow started, because Blackmore wanted to record it for Deep Purple and they didn't want to do it. So he ended up getting Elf to record the song with him. That's how the band came to be. It's an old quartermass song, but it sounds a lot like something that Elf would do anyway. It's that honky tonk boogie rock stuff that Elf were doing. But it's got a cool little slide guitar part in there from Ritchie, and the cowbell's cool that's in it. Catch the Rainbow, just top notch ballad. I mean, there's it's a bit of melancholy in that. I love the solo on that one, really cool. And I mentioned Snake Charmer was the first song I ever heard. That's a dark, menacing track. I like the rhythm section in that. Gary Driscoll and Craig Gruber were the rhythm section of the band, and I think they're very underrated. I mean, they played their asses off on that album. Blackmore wasn't happy with their styles, so he replaced them, of course, pretty fast with Cozy Powell and Jimmy Bain. And I don't think that the lineup on this album ever played a live show. I think it just kind of, I don't think there's anything ever documented about them playing a live show with that lineup. But Temple of the King, another just classic, fantastic story from Dio, kind of folky, Renaissance type thing going on with that. It's like about a young man's journey to a place of importance through some sort of ritual. I loved Blackmore's solo in that. I remember my father didn't care for my music at all, but I remember listening to that track one day and that guitar solo was on, and my dad stepped in my room and he says, "Now I like that. That sounds really good." So it's like kudos, Dad dug it, so that was cool. If you don't like rock and roll, is the next track. That's another Elf-like track. Makes me even wonder if it might have been left over from the Elf days. Cool piano parts in that from Mickey Lee Soul, who's not heard that much on the album, the piano player, but it's an okay track for what it is. 16th Century Greensleeves, another standout track on this one. It's got a great plotting riff. It's kind of got this medieval. It's a medieval tale. It's a group of warriors who are trying to save a woman from an evil entity who's actually captured her and keeping her in a tower. But cool storyline with that. I love the way Dio presents that and the story of that. It's really cool. And then it ends with "Still I'm Sad," which is Yardbirds cover, which is the instrumental. There were lyrics because they do the live version on stage record. Yeah. Dio actually sings the lyrics, but man, Gary Driscoll is just killing it on the cowbell. I mean, Christopher Walken would just give him a salute, because he is riding that cowbell on that song, man. But he is kicking ass. Yeah, Gary Driscoll, a very underrated drummer. But I love both of these albums a lot. Much like Pete said, if you'd asked me 25, 30 years ago, I would have probably gone, well, even longer than that, 40 years ago, I would have gone, I got to go Dio all the way. But I'm still going to go Dio. I love the Deep Purple record, but I got to give it for Dio being on this. So Uncle Ronnie would be mad if I picked anything else. So got to go with that.
And a little bit of trivia on that original version of Black Sheep of the Family on the Quatermass album. There's no guitar player in that band. So Ritchie picked a cool song that he can just be the first guy to ever play guitar.
Exactly. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. When my opening notes, I screwed up heavily on that because I mentioned that some of the guys were on the album, but they're the ones that were on the tour. I correct myself with that. So sorry. It's been a long day. It's been crazy day.
Yeah, they must have just put the album out and immediately Blackmore is like, okay, before we play live, we're going to kick all these dudes out, clean house and rehire everybody,
Yeah, for sure. And I saw some notes that actually when Ritchie left Deep Purple, he invited Coverdale to come do this album. Actually, he wanted Coverdale to leave and come with him, but obviously that didn't happen. But could have been Coverdale on Blackmore's Rainbow. Then
I think I saw
Rainbow, and it still would have been an Elf.
I think I remember Dio doing an interview once where he said that, Ritchie never really said anything to him at all when they were the support band. And he just one day he was in the dressing room and he said Ritchie walked in and said, "You're a great singer." And then I was kind of broke the ice, after they had been doing months of shows with him,
Yeah.
So they started the first tour November 10th, 1975 in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, with the lineup of Blackmore, Dio, Cozy Powell, Tony Carey, and Jimmy Bain. So he basically
Right.
sacked the whole band before they even started the tour.
And
Wow.
actually, the photos that are on the album, the live photos, are of Blackmore always in Deep Purple.
Yeah.
And of course, Dio with Elf on the album cover and the album insert. All right, let's go over to Connecticut and talk to Mr. James Delisle. He's all excited. I heard about this episode. So
yeah, man, this was a
you
great
excited?
fucking, us talking about doing this at the end of the last episode. I'm like, man, that's the good versus right there. Purple without Blackmore, Blackmore without Purple. There you go. So I had a lot of fun revisiting both of these albums past week. I really love this Deep Purple album. I got big into White Snake during COVID. During COVID, I revisited a lot of the old stuff that I loved when I was a kid. So I went back to White Snake and listened to Slide It In and the 1987 self-titled album and Slip of the Tongue. And I didn't know any of the old stuff before Slide It In. So I went and bought all those albums and loved them. And then I went, hey, man, I don't have that Deep Purple Come Taste the Band record. So I wound up grabbing that because I was on such a Coverdale kick. And I got to agree with Tony Dio. So much of the stuff on this just sounds like what's about to happen with White Snake. And I love it. It's so funky. It's so cool. David Coverdale has such a sexy voice when he sings. It's like when he really gets into the lyrics and he gets sort of breathy in parts where he lets a line go and he kind of breathes into the microphone. To me, that's like the audio equivalent of fucking. It's just so, it really is. It's just so good, man. Like, I want to put on those tunes and like get my old lady in the bedroom, me and her, and just have fun. It's just so good.
You're going to show her your White Snake?
I'm going to show her.
He got turned on over David Coverdale and takes it out on his girl.
Pete Pardo already talked about the guitar solo in Dealer, and you can't talk about that enough. It's the guitar solo in that song is just so badass. And it makes you want to rewind that and play it again and play it again and play it again. Tommy Bolin just really shines on that guitar solo. I Need Love. What a good traditional kind of funk song. It's almost got sort of James Brown, sort of Sly and the Family Stone kind of thing going on. Rest in peace, Sly. He just passed away. Yeah, love that tune. Drifter. The beginning of that song is so immaculate. When the riff kicks in, it's got that funky thing going on, and then the guitar, like the lead comes in, and it's so high, and it sends goosebumps up my back, man, just hearing that. And the way Coverdale kicks it off with that, it's just, I just want to fucking throw something. So good. Love Child, another one. That's another one where I just want to fucking, it's just audio sex. It's just so good. And Keep on Moving is such a cool, weird, spacey, stonery, like that's a tune where you want to burn one and crank it up and just kind of float away into the ether. It's just so cool. That's really, if you listen to all the stoner metal bands that have come out from the 90s up to now, man, that's like the template for all that stuff. The low to the high to the heavy to it's just so great, and the harmonizing between Coverdale and Hughes is fucking chef's kiss. So good.
Mhm.
Now that I've heaped a whole bunch of praise on the Deep Purple record, for me the winner here is the Rainbow album, and it's not by a country mile, and it's only really because I love Ronnie James Dio so much that I can't pick the David Coverdale album because I fucking love Ronnie. Catch the Rainbow is one of the most beautiful ballads I've ever heard ever in music. That's another song that has that uplifting, that's another great one to listen to on leafy green medicinal herbs and just kind of float away. It takes you away, and you feel like you're in the clouds looking at a rainbow listening to that song. So good. The lyrics are so great. Snake Charmer, I listen to Snake Charmer and I feel like when I hear Ritchie Blackmore's excuse for leaving Deep Purple that he didn't like the funk direction, I hear that song and I hear a whole lot of funk in Snake Charmer. Like, I feel like it's not so far removed from what we're hearing on Come Taste the Band. So it's kind of funny, like, I left Purple because I didn't like that direction, but here you go.
It would fit. It would fit on Stormbringer very much. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, definitely. Temple of the King, I really love listening to that with the headphones on because there's so many acoustic scales going on in the background under the singing that don't really stand out. They're just sort of back there. And if you put the headphones on and crank that up and you hear all that intricate acoustic shit going on in the background, it really blows your mind. It's fantastic. Ritchie Blackmore was the fucking man, and he should have never done that Renaissance bullshit.
Well, he's doing it there.
What's that?
I say it does kind of start on this album, though.
It does totally.
It sort of does, but he keeps it to the electric, and it's still rocking. Yeah. And I gotta say, for this Rainbow record, the only weak track on it for me is Still I'm Sad, and that's only because Ronnie doesn't sing on it. And the one track that Ronnie sings on that I don't really care for is Black Sheep of the Family because I think the lyrics are a little goofy. Other than that, I think this is a fantastic record. If you don't like Man on the Silver Mountain, you're watching the wrong YouTube channel. Portrait is fantastic. Catch the Rainbow rules. Snake Charmer, Temple of the King, 16th Century. Fantastic. This takes it for me. And again, it's not by a country mile. I love this Deep Purple album. It was a hard choice. I listened to both of these albums probably 20 times in the past week, and it goes to Rainbow for me.
Awesome.
I think it's been overstated way too many times over the decades that Ritchie was so dissatisfied with the music in Deep Purple that he wanted to leave and do something else. Because you mentioned that some of the stuff on that debut album, and even on like Difficult to Cure, it kind of approaches what they were doing in Deep Purple. I think Ritchie just wanted to work with new people. And if we saw what happened from this first album going forward, he kept changing the lineup all the time because he just wanted to work with new people. So I just think he just had grown tired of working within the confines of Deep Purple more than he was dissatisfied with the music. That's always been my personal opinion.
Good point.
I'm reading one of his books, biographies right now, and his whole beginning, every other couple months, he was opening in another band for somebody else. Like he just kept jumping into these backing bands, and he always worked with different people. He worked with Jerry Lee Lewis and all sorts of people, and that was his whole beginning. So like he was just like a restless kind of person. Like he needed to keep moving, and I bet you even in Blackmore's Night, there's probably been 100 people in and out of that band, even throughout the years.
Yeah,
wasn't that the initial purpose of Deep Purple, though, was they were called Roundabout, and the idea initially was they're going to have different people in and out of the band. If I'm not mistaken,
Well, the Roundabout thing was just like a name that they were throwing around.
Okay.
And they wouldn't settle on a name, and then all of a sudden there was like this interview, and Ritchie was in the interview, and he's like, "Oh yeah, the band's name is Deep Purple," and then the rest of the band goes, "Oh, I guess we're Deep Purple now." And that's
Huh.
from a song that his mother, somebody famous like way back, did a song called Deep Purple, and his mom used to play it on piano and so or something, and he liked that, the ring of that, because of that.
Huh.
All righty. Who shall we go to next? How about we stick with Count Ralphus is talking about stuff, and we'll go from Count. We'll go over to Ovi. We'll go over to Ed and Christian and round things up with me tonight.
Right. So much of like what Pete said in the beginning about like being an album that you just kind of skipped. I didn't get this album till years and years later. If I would have had it as a little kid, it would have been a really awesome, solid rocking album. But I did get on cassette, like Dio with Tony was saying, I had gotten Rainbow as a little kid. So I have way more time with that album. And I got it like back in the day. I knew I got Mob Rules and Heaven and Hell, and I was into the first couple Dio albums. So I found out that he was in this band called Rainbow, and I just happened to come across the cassette. I can't remember exactly like if I got it used or whatever, but I had the cassette for years, and I didn't get the other two Rainbow albums by Dio until a couple of years later too. But so I really loved the Dio album, just like everybody's saying, like a hair more than the Deep Purple. If I had the Deep Purple as long, I don't know if I would say the same, because doing the deep dive, I listened to it 4 times this week, and coming home, what a great way to enter with Mark IV. That's Tony Bolin is out there soloing like crazy. I mean, this whole album, he just stands out so much on the album. I couldn't help every song thinking about his guitar solos and stuff. And it's weird that they're both produced by the same person, because I think the production's way better on the Deep Purple album. I just think it's like a really perfect production for 1975. Um, Dealer, I thought was really great. It's a cool vibe. I like how when Glenn and Dave sing together on that song, it's really cool. It's awesome how they did that with their whole 3 albums that they did together. How they they worked together. They didn't like fight over who's doing what or whatever. Drifter is another great one. Blazing solos, sounds powerful. I like Love Child, even though I don't usually love songs with love in it, but in the title, but great opening riff. You know, I really love Ode to G, the instrumental. I think it's an awesome instrumental. It's really cool. And if you get like if you listen to the one that they put out later, they got the Bolin Pacey Jam, the instrumental. That's another instrumental that kicks ass. And yeah, I mean, Bolin is just amazing on this album. And I went back and watched my Phoenix Rising out DVD.
Yeah, man.
Great 80-minute.
Too.
Yeah, great 80-minute documentary about that whole era. And I had recently read Glenn Hughes's book, so I got to read a lot about his time with Tommy Bolin. And I actually just finished not too long ago as a Rainbow book, so I got to read about how Ritchie's just going through people like nothing, But like a lot of other people said, you got to go with Dio. Dio singing. I mean, Man on the Silver Mountain, it's an absolute classic. I actually really love every other version I ever hear of it, whether it's the Dio band doing it or whatever. It's always the live versions, because it's just way faster, more upbeat, and just more powerful. So I think this song gets better and better as time goes on. Self Portrait, another great one. There's only a devil to pay, and then down. That was a really cool like beginning of like that Dio kind of vibe. And then Catch the Rainbow is a great ballad for ballad. It's got like, I like the Floydish kind of part where when Dio's not singing, it's got like this Floydish kind of vibe to it. Stake Charm is great, but it's like he's got saying like the funky, and I hear a lot of Southern rock. It's like Dio was saying about the the Elf sound. It almost sounds like it's such a continuation of Elf and Deep Purple. It's definitely like the combination of them both, because you get like these honky tonk and then Southern kind of rock sound to it at times. Temple of the King, great. 16th Century Greensleeves, great. The solos on both of these albums are amazing. I go with the Rainbow album cover over Taste the Band. And a little quick thing about the Taste the Band, the way they came up with it was Tony Bolin did like a misstep speaking, and he said he was taste the wine, taste the band, or he wanted to say taste the wine, taste the wine instead of taste the band. But then they said, "Oh, taste the band, that's good." So he's all high and drugged up and came up with that, and they went with that. But it's kind of a weird album cover, though. But I don't think it was very memorable. Like I didn't think of it as like a Deep Purple. You could barely see the Deep Purple logo on it and stuff. But yeah, really amazing album. I'm glad that we did a deep dive on this because it's the first time I've listened to it in a while and really enjoyed every song. There's nothing to skip on it, but I got to go with it just by hair because I have so much more of a history with Ritchie Rainbow's Rising.
You guys get a chance to read it. There's a Tommy Bolin biography. I don't remember when it was written, but it's called Touched by Magic, written by Greg Prado. I read it like a long time ago. It's a very, very cool book if you can track it down. Like a cheap paperback copy. It's well worth reading.
All right.
Yeah, Count, you mentioned the cover. I pulled these albums out last night, and a friend of mine was over, and he was looking at them, and I said, that's such a great cover with the castles of guitar. And he goes, what? He goes, man, I've looked at this album for 40 years and never noticed it was a guitar. It's like,
you could picture that Boston guitar spaceship flying above it.
I have a friend that has that as a tattoo. He got a tattoo of that, but I don't like the logo on that though. It would have looked so much better with the old English logo like they used adapted on the next record.
Yeah.
They probably hadn't come up with the other logo yet, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Ralph. Let's move over to our resident Viking. Ovi.
Yeah.
I gotta wake up. It's what's it, 4 a.m. over there? Almost time to get up for work.
Like that. I think I'll probably be the black sheep of the panel because Come Taste the Band is my favorite Deep Purple album. Reason why is I feel it's such an organic album. It's such a more like a jam session. The whole album is so vibrant. I think for me, Rainbow is kind of more, I don't know, boxed in a way because they are more less organic, I guess. But as for the album, there's the original album, and you have a good remix in 2010, which for some reason is 3 minutes longer. They have so I don't know why they cut the songs shorter and stuff, but I'm really happy that the 2010 remix came out because it has more clarity and more crisp to it, and it really shines through.
I think it's the Bolin Pacey Jam wasn't on the original. I think that's what it is. That's where there's the extra 3 minutes because that's not on my CD. It's not on my CD.
The songs that's a minute longer. So there's 3 songs that's a minute longer.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, they let a couple of the endings of a couple of the songs. They just kept them in there. So
instead of fade outs. Yeah, right.
It's a good remix, by the way. Very good.
Yeah, I think so too. I really loved Tom Bolin. I think he's just because I understand it wasn't so easy for him because he got into the James Gang and he replaced Joe Walsh. So every time he played with the James Gang, where is Joe Walsh? Where is Joe Walsh? And when he came in Purple, where is Ritchie? Where is Ritchie? So he is always he never got any the recognition he deserved because he's just a substitute his whole career basically. So. Well, and Sapphire, where it started, is pretty cool. I read a little about it. It's about the Sapphire train that goes from Sioux City down to LA. So they just named the band after that train ride.
They had a female singer who sounded kind of like Janis Joplin. They were really good.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And he was in Moxie, the Canadian outfit.
Well, he was hanging out in the studio next door to where Moxie was recording their album, so they invited him in to play guitar solos on 75% of the songs. He's great on Moxie. So if you've never heard that first Moxie album, definitely check it out. It's pretty
Yeah, kick
heavy, and his
ass.
solos are amazing on it. Great album.
Yeah, good stuff.
The good thing, though, I think about for Tom Bolin, if you turn that coin around, he was a substitute for a lot of things, but at the same time, he got flavors from a lot of different places, which I think made him so organic, made him like such a good guitar player that he is. As for the album in itself, too, I mean, it's my favorite Purple album because I think. It's just the album I can listen to and listen to and listen to. It's not an album I want to change out with a different Purple album. I say that the album picks us and we not them. So as for the Rainbow, I didn't get into Dio until like I have Dio in my life because of strange highways, but it wasn't like my main listening thing. So I got into Dio much later. So I didn't have him in my youth, like many of you people here have. So I don't have that connection. As for the album, I try to like really get into it. I like the songs best that are less purplishy. So it's the songs that are least the purple vibe to it. I feel it's most interesting songs on this album because if I want to listen to Purple, I just listen to Purple. If I want to listen to Rainbow, I kind of want to have its own flavor. So I really like side B the best, and I like that Green Sleeve song. I really like that one and the ballad, and I think side B is probably my favorite part of that album. I haven't listened to that album before, not too long ago, because it's not been my jam. But I'm really happy that I did go through it and kind of see the difference, the change. Well, like one band going this way, the other band going that way, and they, like people have said here, they have such similar vibes. So it's kind of like, what if it happened if they all just jam together? What would that come out of that? So that would be kind of interesting. But that's pretty much for me. So come and taste the band for me, of course.
All right.
Killer, man. That's crazy. That's your favorite one too. But hey, you like you said,
I'll be honest.
your second favorite's not Slaves and Masters, is it?
No, it's Fireball. Fireball.
I love
But
that.
I speak about Mind Transplant, the soul album for the drummer in Vashu, what's it called, Orchestra or something?
Mahavishnu Orchestra. Yeah.
Yeah. I read something about somebody saying that it's one of the best jazz fusion albums.
You talking about Mind Transplant by Alphonse Mouzon?
Yeah.
That's crazy. It's crazy. It's so good. Yeah, and Tommy plays on I think 3 or 4 tracks on it. So good. Yeah.
And he also played on
Yeah.
Billy Spectrum album.
Spectrum by Billy Cobham.
Yeah, that's a great record.
Oh yeah. Some of his best playing are on those 2 albums, on any album. So that I highly recommend it.
Had a coworker that I used to work with. He used to talk about that album, and we started listening to it. And I was like, "Wow, this is so good." That Billy Cobham, Spectrum.
All right.
And also like he was trying. Tom Bolin was doing his solo stuff back in 74, 75, and he had like Glenn Hughes, he had Phil Collins in the studio, and Beach Boys encouraged him to sing because he got really good vocals too. So I guess that's how he got the invite to Purple through. I'm assuming Glenn Hughes he's not credited on the album, but he plays on his first solo album.
Teaser.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks, Ovi.
Mhm.
And let's move from Norway over to New York City and talk with Armageddon Productions, Ed Farsley.
How we doing? What's going on, guys? Wow, 50 years. That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. Yeah, 2 great albums. I mean, this is, unlike Avi, definitely not my favorite Purple album. Great album. Definitely a very unique album. One of the more distinctive, incorporating a lot of different music styles. We mentioned funk, we mentioned jazz. I feel the first couple songs got a little southern rock twang to him as well. Definitely a unique Deep Purple album. I like it more than Stormbringer. Tommy Bolin is a fantastic guitarist. Excuse me, 1 second, move my cat here. Tommy Bolin is a great guitarist, and this album is definitely guitar driven. A lot of like almost mainstream guitar, just straight rock and roll riffs. And unfortunately, the one thing I don't like about the album is the lack of John Lord's keyboards. Basically, his hammer is just the hammer keyboards are fantastic, and it's a real staple of Deep Purple's sound that is missing on this album. But overall, it is a great album. Let's see, a couple of guest songs. The Drifter, Dealer, two fantastic songs. Let's see here. Coverdale's vocals always sound fantastic. I love Coverdale's vocals. Even today, I think he still sounds great. He's really sounds amazing on this album. I think his vocal style, his vocal lines, the passion in his voice really comes out. I think of the 3 Deep Purple albums, I think his vocals might be the best on this album that he did with them. Let's see here. This time around sounds more like a Queen. With the this time around in G, I think sounds a little Queen influence in there for that one. Let's see here. Definitely best song on the album. We mentioned before. I think Tony mentioned this. Keep on moving. Just an absolutely brilliant song. One of Deep Purple's best songs. Let's see here. The groove, the fantastic vocals, atmospheric, passionate, and just surprise, the keyboards are really stand out on this song. It's the best song I have. Great song. Yeah. And again, I got to give it to Rainbow between these two albums. I got to leave with Rainbow more. You can't beat Ronnie James Dio's vocals. I mean, bottom line. Of the 3 Rainbow albums with Dio, this is definitely my least favorite. I think the albums go up. Basically, I like the third one most and the second one and the first one. But this is a great album. Man on the Silver Mountain is, like we've all said, just one of all-time classic Rainbow songs. Dio's vocals are fantastic. The musicianship, the Elf guys, they're killing it on this album. They really are. It's a shame that they didn't stick because you can't beat the musicians that Ritchie Blackmore got, but it would have been interesting to see how the band sounded with the Elf guys continuing. Let's see. Temple of the King is just an absolute beautiful classic. It's just fantastic. The Yardbirds classic is amazing. Let's see. Long Live Rock and Roll is one of my all-time favorite songs, probably. I can't even, every song on this album is fucking great. It's a brilliant record. We mentioned it sounds, he did leave Deep Purple because of all the funk he did, but he's got some funk on this, got a little jazz on this. It's more a straightforward rock and roll, heavier rock and roll album than the Deep Purple. I would definitely say that. And between the two of them, I got to give it to Rainbow also again. But Ronnie's vocals is nothing else.
Awesome. All right. Let's move over to Connecticut and talk with Christian.
Hey, yeah. So, it's great hearing everyone talk about both these albums, and a lot of things I'm thinking about saying. A lot of the points have already been hit, but it's all good. So yeah, I have both of them on LP. I don't have the gatefold like Tony Dio has there. But anyway, this album right here, you got Man on the Silver Mountain, like everyone's always said, it's one of Dio's, iconic songs. Self-Portrait, I think, is a pretty cool song as well. The one song, Black Sheep of the Family, where they wanted to start where Ritchie basically started Rainbow from, it's actually one of the songs on here. I could kind of take it or leave it. It's okay, but I'm not like, there's better. I think pretty much every other song on here is better than that one. But Catch the Rainbow, great ballad. Snake Charmer, cool song. Temple of the King, another great ballad. If you don't like rock and roll, kind of reminds me more of like what Dio was doing with Elf. It definitely sounds more like that. 16th Century Green Sleeves, just another drop dead classic on this one. Just when Dio's singing it, Hang 'em Higher and all that is just like you want to join him there, like at the castle, and like just take this dude out. And the closing track, Still I'm Sad, great cover, great song. Um, it's, like everyone else says, it's probably not my favorite of the Dio Rainbow. It's probably not my favorite one. I like the other two better. But the interesting thing is that Ronnie himself actually said this was his, the best of the Rainbow albums that he did, which I always thought was kind of interesting, maybe because it was the first one, who knows, but it's with the Elf guys, but either way. Um, and then the next one up, Come Taste the Band. Not my favorite Deep Purple album, but it's pretty solid. Opening track is great, Coming Home. Getting Tighter is probably my favorite one off of this one. It's just got such, I don't know, it's just got such a cool groove to it. Dealer, it's got like everyone was saying, has a great guitar solo to it. And I do love the track This Time Around in Ode to G. I just love it's just got this heaviness to it, but it's kind of funky. I don't know, it kind of hits, the heaviness, the funkiness, but overall, it's just a good hard rocking album. Overall, I am going to give the slight nod to Rainbow though. Even though like this one right here, there's probably not one song that I would want to skip on Come Taste the Band. Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, there's one or two songs that I'm like, like I was saying, I don't really care that too much for, but the other material on that album just kind of makes up for it. And I don't know, I just love the depth of this one because you have those heavier songs like Man on the Silver Mountain or 16th Century Green Sleeves, but then you got like those kind of ballad songs which you don't really get too much on the other like Rainbow Rising is just like straight up just hard rock 70s metal, where this one you get a little bit more depth in the songs that way. So that's what I got to say about those. So
Awesome. Thank you, Christian. Guess that
thank you.
just leaves me on the end of this thing tonight. And I want to thank everybody for giving their time to the channel and everybody at home that's on the internet that's watching the show, and take a moment to hit like and hit subscribe and mention your favorites from these albums in the comments. My favorite tunes, I guess I'll start off with Rainbow. Of course, everybody's talked about everything pretty much that I can explain tonight, but the Man on the Silver Mountain is such a great, great metal anthem. And it's not just a Dio anthem. I think it's one of the just great metal songs ever. I also love The Temple of the King. I also love Catch the Rainbow. I think it's just a hauntingly beautiful song. I love the 16th Century Green Sleeves. I can do without the rock and roll song. Kind of drives me, I don't know. It doesn't drive me nuts, but if I could, that one, I wouldn't skip it, but it doesn't do much for me. And Black Sheep of the Family's okay. It's definitely not one of the stronger. Still, I'm sad. Of course, the cover is really good. I really love it when the live version with Dio doing the vocals on it. I think that's just a great song. Also, it was a great song when the Yardbirds did it too. But just well done. The Deep Purple album, I never owned back in the day. In fact, when I was in that, I'm 64. Actually, I had to call Social Security today. It's pretty scary. I'm getting very old. So I'm back in the 70s when these albums were new. I did not own that Deep Purple record. I had Made in Japan, Made in Europe, and Machine Head, I think, on 8 tracks. And my friends had souped up cars and they would drive around, and Made in Japan was the one that was played the most, and then Made in Europe was the other one. And we just listened to those. We didn't have much money, so we didn't have every record, but it took me years to actually get Come Taste the Band. In fact, at Rock Fantasy, I had a separate iPod docks, which I still use in the shop. I'm outdated now with the iPod dock, but we would go, and I made like a really classic rock playlist from one part of the store. And that was probably when the iPod was so it's almost probably 20 years ago now. And I just went out and bought a lot of stuff that I never had. and downloaded it into my iTunes and put it in there. So obviously I've only had that album for about 20 years of my life, and I don't go to it a lot, but we've talked about it on the channel a couple times now. And I go back to that album, and I just watched a little, not kind of documentary, but something that was on YouTube before I did the show tonight with Glenn Hughes and John Lord talking about it. And it is a great record, but it's definitely more of like a funky. I mean, someone mentioned Stevie Wonder. I think a couple of these songs they could have performed on Soul Train almost. It's very
Yeah.
soul-y. It's very, and it's, I love the Coming Home. I love Dealer. You Keep Me Moving is a great song. And this time around, OTG is a great song also. Most people talk, we've talked so much about these records tonight already. But if you're going to tell me I can only buy one of these records, I can only own one of these records, I am going to go with Blackmore. I'm going to go with the Blackmore's Rainbow. And of course, maybe it's just the Man on the Silver Mountain, but Temple of the King, that's that chorus where he's just weaving and wooing, and just that part, it's just so great. And so we're going to go with Rainbow if you're going to pick one, but it was just, I thought it was a great comparison. We originally talked last week, I was going to put Blackmore's Rainbow and Scorpions Love Drive, and someone mentioned, well, Deep Purple, and I'm like, well, it makes a lot of sense because it was just mixing the two together. It would have been interesting to have the Scorps in this one too, but we'll have to do them another week. Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Steve, I have Come Taste the Band on 8-track if you need to borrow it for your van.
now the picture on it.
Wow.
Nah. You remember how some of them, the old 8-tracks had the covers that went over them, the pictures, and you would.
Yeah, it was in
they threw the boxes away.
sleeve.
Yeah, they threw the cover box. Yeah, that sucks.
Just like my Sabbath one last week, it was the same thing.
8-track tapes in my 1974 340 Duster. Yes. Boy, am I old.
If anybody out there's watching has never seen this Phoenix Rising DVD that Count Ralphus brought up a while ago, it's amazing. It's very well done. It's a documentary about the band, about the Mark IV lineup, and it's a just crazy story about them going to play in Indonesia to this big festival where basically the mafia over there basically, just punked them into doing this festival and they didn't get paid, and somebody on their crew got killed, and they were trying to hold the band accountable for that. And just it's a nutty story. No wonder they went home and basically split up. And then it's also got the Japanese shows, which is some of the last shows they did. And Tommy Bolin, the story goes, had fallen asleep but he was drugged up, and it had I think he had done so much heroin in his arm he couldn't get his fretboard hand to work.
Good.
And they said he fell asleep on his arm, but he basically could only play bar chords. So all the solos are done by John Lord on the Hammond for that show. Yeah, it's pretty unique show. But I mean, DVDs are kind of a thing of the past now because everybody streams everything. But this was so well done. It had a nice booklet in it. It had 2 nice booklets in it. And I looked earlier to see if it was on Tubi, and it's not. So I guess you still got to buy it or find it.
It's on YouTube, though. You can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah.
And Glenn Hughes' book, he goes really into depth about that whole show in Indonesia there, and it's crazy as hell. There's so much drugs and stuff. Such a scary thing. They took him out of jail and made him play the second night. They said, "You're playing tonight." As soon as he got done, he went right back into the jail cell.
Jeez.
And all the money that they were supposed to make from that show all went back to the country because they wouldn't let them out of the country unless they put that money back. And their good friend ends up getting killed. But luckily they weren't the only one. He wasn't the only one that got killed,
That's funny.
Yeah, he was like their tour manager, got shoved down an elevator shaft.
Yeah. It's some crazy story.
And it was a setup so that way they had something to hold against Deep Purple where they would have to pay and so they just held their wages. It was like $700,000. They
Jeez.
played 2 nights in like a 50,000 seat stadium, soccer stadium that was only supposed and they said they had like 100,000 in there. Like they totally oversold it and they made a ton of money, but they totally got fucked on that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right, yeah, that's I have to watch that again because I don't remember all these stories, but I have to watch that. I watched something which was more, I don't believe it was that because it was only about a 40-minute show and it was just going from track to track, the one I just watched on YouTube. So it definitely wasn't that DVD. But yeah, DVDs are definitely a dying thing right now.
And this DVD though does start off with like the 30-minute concert of them in Japan with Tommy Bolin. So that might have been what you've seen because it's like a 2-part thing.
The one I watched was just like Glenn Hughes talking and John Lord talking and then going and showing clips from each song. That was what I watched. Yeah, that might have been some of the footage.
VHS from 85.
What's that?
It was a VHS from 85. They have really edited down to get all the
VHS,
like
I
cooking.
tell you, as me running a record store, I don't know if James is seeing this. I've been noticing it the last couple months that I'm starting to sell more CDs again.
Yeah, it's coming back.
And I have some records that I thought were going to fly off the shelf that are sitting, and the CDs are that's out of the new releases at least. But I had a giant collection twice in like 2 weeks of CDs that I spent hours just pricing, and those have been just leaving out of there like crazy. So
yeah, man,
the CD is coming back, I think. Pete, look at you got a bunch of CDs on the wall behind you.
Look at me. This could be my retirement. If CDs come back as strong as vinyl did.
Yeah.
I mean, there are CDs out there that are worth
expensive.
Yeah, there's CDs that are out of print that are worth money. If you look at it,
yeah,
go on Amazon or with Discogs and take a look. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm guaranteed to be able to sell music if CDs are coming back too. Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Physical media. What are you going to do if the internet crashes?
The music DVD has not reared its head yet because I have some of those, but I don't see them. And years ago we were talking
because everything goes on to YouTube. Every one of them ends up on YouTube for free. So who's gonna buy?
And then we were talking about the back to the beginning. Now from last week we had Aloe on, we had Richard Johnson. We talked a little bit about the back to the beginning, and Chris is like, well, they got a month, and when they do like a wrestling or something, it's about a month before, and no doubt, like after we taped those shows, they announced that was going to be streaming. Now, probably 20 years ago, they would have just said, we're going to put it out on DVD and everybody's going to run out and buy it. But now they're going to do this. And $29.99 for a streaming is not a bad price.
For the whole day, yeah. That's not bad.
Yeah.
What was it? Aloe said, somebody said, that's too much. And Aloe said, that's like $2.50 an hour or something. I'm game.
I think Sky was saying something about it in the private chat about it, and he said you'll drive 4 hours to see goat something and goat some another, and then I guess that was the end of the conversation. I'm sure a lot of us are going to have some house parties or backyard parties. I'm sure Chris is going to have a get together on his screen at his house. So it'll be something to do on July 5th there, and all around the world, people are going to be watching it. Anyhow, we're way off subject, but I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Ed, Farsley, Christian, James, Dile, Count Ralphus, Tony Dio, Ovi, and our special guest, my good old friend Pete Pardo, made it tonight. So we'll see you guys all next time on the Rock Fantasy YouTube channel. We'll be back next week and we'll be talking about something we haven't figured it out yet. Have a good night, everybody.